Hey guys, my name's Gabrielle Castano with The Gamer, and I am here with...
John Epler, Creative Director for Dragon Age the Veilguard.
Ashley Barlow, Creative Performance Director for Dragon Age the Veilguard.
And we are here to ask them some questions at San Diego Comic-Con about the game that is coming out soon. I have a mix of questions from my colleagues and stuff. We have a bunch of big fans on our staff. It's obviously been some time since the last Dragon Age title, so how have you guys gone about refreshing your memories for the next game? Is this a return to the series roots, or are you trying something fresh, or is it a mix of both?
I think every Dragon Age game has always been a mix of both. So, I mean, Dragon Age 2, Dragon Age Inquisition, it's both taking what's come before and being respectful and making sure to pay honor to it, but also doing something new at the same time. So each one's has its own cast of characters. Obviously, each one's had a different protagonist. But yeah, I'd say a mix of both is pretty much where we're at.
Totally. We took like the inspiration of the great storytelling that Bioware is already doing, and they just elevated and we iterated on it, and it feels very fresh.
Awesome. So how did you guys decide on the change in name from Dreadwolf to Veilguard?
I mean, as we were building the game, obviously this is still a lot of... Solus is a big part of the story of Dragon Age Veilguard, but as we were building the game, as we were building the story, we realized that the story really was about the companions, the people that you bring along with you to stop the end of the world. And so rather than, a title that focuses on one antagonist that makes them the centerpiece of the story, we wanted to go with a title that really emphasized that, that the Veilguard, that group of people you bring together to stop the end of the world. So
what have been some of the biggest changes implemented in the upcoming title that differentiate the gameplay from different games in the series? And was there anything that you wanted to do in that regard with this game but weren't able to?
So, I mean, I think every Dragon Age game has been very different in terms of how it approaches combat and gameplay. I think for us, the biggest thing we wanted to bring in was really the concept of creating these fantastic builds, these using abilities, choosing skills that really build the strategic layer on top of the moment-to-moment gameplay. I think it's it's very deep and involved customization system. It's this skill tree. We've shown a little bit of a preview of it. We'll show more over time, but it really allows you to just pick and choose how you want to build these characters, how you want to make them work together in ways that allow for really interesting strategic combinations, strategic tactics on the battlefield. So
it's different because it's so many new characters. I mean, we have some sneaky surprises of returning loved characters, but that's the big thing. I mean, we have 700 new unique characters to talk to. Again, it's not the biggest game. It's a big game. Yeah.
Okay. So do you guys have a favorite region of the world that you've liked best, or that you're most excited for fans to experience?
I really like... Well, I love Minrathous.
I mean, I love Minrathous as well, but instead of going with the same answer as Ashley, we go with something different. I really love Ravane. It's, that more tropical feel. Something we've never really been able to do before in Dragon Age is, what does the coast of Ravane look like? Obviously, though, there's also Treviso and Antibes. There's so many awesome areas in this game that it's really hard to pick one, because there's been so much love poured into how these areas look, and they all feel and look different, but also coherent and consistent with the style of the game as a whole. And I mean, that's always the hardest part. You build a world with a bunch of different spaces, making sure they feel like they belong together is challenging, and our team has knocked out of the park on that.
A question from my colleague. A lot of the marketing so far has seemed fairly jovial for a pretty dark series, but from the trailer, it looks like things are gonna get dark. So how do you guys go about balancing the lightness with the dark in this game?
Oh man, the writers did such a good job of adding, like, finding the light in the darkness of this story, and it's not without humor. You have to have it. You totally have to have it. I think the cast brought it out nicely, and it's not something that we need to shy away from. I think it balances it out.
And I mean, I think the mix of light and dark has always been a part of Dragon Age. As far back as Origins, you had Alistair, obviously wisecracking from the beginning. In DA2, you had some lighter, funnier moments. In DAI, you had the card game of Wicked Grace with their companions, but I think it's that contrast. The dark moments don't land as well if everything is dark, everything is grim, but when you counterbalance them, I mean, I'll use DA2 as an example, where you had the storyline with Hawk's mother counterbalanced with, some slightly quippier, lighter companions like Isabella and Varric, and that moment hit hard because there was that contrast.
Exactly. If everything's dark, then it's kind of just depressing.
We need to bring you down.
Yeah. So for both of you, what was your favorite character design from the game, and what about them makes you choose them as your top pick?
Come on. There's no picking favorites because they're all so good. I mean, you spend enough time with any of them, you're going to fall in love with them and then hate them at times and fall in love with them and hate them at times. So I wish I could give you a favorite, but how about you guys choose, you get in and you tell us your favorite. I would find that more interesting.
Fair.
Yeah, I mean, I love all the characters. I would say one of the more interesting character designs to me has always been Veilguard, the Necromancer. Just the way that they created this character is a little bit older, but also, kind of in the more classical Hollywood actor type and I found the way that they built him to be that character super fascinating. And also, again, clearly, as we've seen from the fan base, they landed that, attractive older man. So I'm really excited for fans. But I mean, honestly, they're all fantastic, and I can't wait for people to meet all of them.
Is there a particular companion that you're excited to see return? And if so, who is it and why? We're
going to leave that to people to play the game. Obviously, there's Scout Harding who's back, we've already announced, but other characters coming back, I think it's just going to be, I'm excited for people to see them, and especially see them in the context of having 10 years have passed since the last Dragon Age, both in the real world, but also in the world of Thetis. So
we have to let them do their own intros because, that's the good part.
I like how everybody in the trailer had like a little information, like a little name. That's cool. I like that. Yeah. Is there any sort of canon path in the game that fans can consider the true one, or is it truly up to player choice?
We get asked that a lot, especially because when we start doing ancillary products like comics, shows, people want to know what's canon. We have to decide one that is for that media canon, but I don't think there really is a canon state of the world. I do think there are some more interesting ones. I'm always a fan of the most chaotic and most strange paths through the game, but no, there's no canon. There's always what your world of Thetis is, what your people have done is it's your own canon. Canon is a very personal thing in Dragon Age.
Yeah, and it should be. That's what we wanted, right? Like, choose your own path, choose your own adventure, and choose your own consequences. So I'm excited to see what people do.
Awesome. Kind of going off of that, how did the different choices that you make impact the gameplay down the line? If it's something that you can share, if there's something that you block yourself out of, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to get too deep into details because I think one of the most interesting parts of choice and consequences is when those consequences are surprising and unexpected. But each choice, especially the major choices in the game, have significant consequences on gameplay, what content is available to you, but also how characters in the world regard you. No choice should be easy, and we never want to make players feel like there's a right choice. So there's always going to be a consequence, and especially, like I said, some that you don't expect and some that change the world in real ways.
Yeah, leave it to their will.
Part of that is being able to customize the character is a really cool touch in this game. So what were some of the challenges in doing this, and how deep will the customization of the player character actually run? I mean, yeah, it's our character creator. I mean, we've done a lot of work to make sure that it allows players to really be who they want to be. It's one of our core pillars of Dragon Age, always has been, as far back as Dragon Age Origins. In this case, we were able to, leverage new technology, leverage new techniques to really take that customization even further. So, I mean, obviously, we've talked about the character creator a little bit, the choices you make in the game, which faction you belong to, things like that affect your journey through Thetis and through the story of the Veilguard. Ashley, what was the biggest casting decision for the game that you're most excited for fans to see, and how did you choose this person for that character?
I think the biggest casting decision for this game, that's a big statement.
I know.
Okay, one of them.
Yeah, fair.
One of them, and it's a collaboration casting, right? And the ensemble that the companions create was basically where we started. Okay. And I've said this before. We put the character art on the wall. We saw the writing. We auditioned vastly, and we assured that the cast was very dynamic and complementing and opposing to each other. So we spent a lot of time in getting those companions the juiciest they could possibly be.
Are there any plot threads established from the novels or the graphics that have made their way into the new game? And if so, can you share what those are?
I mean, plot threads, one of the things we do try to make sure with the games is that you don't need to have consumed all the ancillary content to understand what's going on. But obviously, I can go into a little bit. There's characters from the comics, especially the most recent one, that show up in the game. So one's pair of characters we've talked about before, Evka and Antoine, two of the Grey Wardens. There's but that in general, we just love to make sure that those characters there's that continuity. So even if you don't read the comics, don't read the books, you still know what's going on. But if you do, it gives you that extra level of texture. And honestly, the same is true even for the previous games. It's one thing where we want to make sure that if you play the previous games, you get that, those references, you get that extra context, that extra texture. But also we want to allow players who don't necessarily consume all that ancillary media to really get into the story of the game and understand what's going on. So
My colleague said that there's going to be roughly 140,000 lines of dialogue in the game. How did you guys go about casting and recording such a gargantuan task?
There's some good. There's a world out there. There's a world in there. That's what it takes time. This talent was casted throughout 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And it's like driving across countries with them. The amount we spend in the booth, and they put their heart and souls into it. And you just we have such a great team, the performance team, the EA talent team, all of our executives, our leaderships that speak into the casting. And we got that, like I said, it's over 700 characters that you get to speak to. You're going to meet somebody you like and someone you don't like. Yeah, and everybody just worked relentlessly and tirelessly to record, and if needed, go back and re-record, because a lot of this recording happens one person at a time. Some of our talent are meeting for the first time.
Wow, that's wild.
This weekend.
And then just a last question that we usually ask in interviews. Is there anything else that you guys would like to share that you think our readers should know about the project?
Honestly, we've talked a lot about everything that a lot of the things I'm excited about. I think generally, I'm really excited for players to play this game, see the characters, see the returning favorites, see how they all connect together into this, what I feel is a very fully realized world and a story with, again, a lot of consequentiality and a lot of characters that just have these exciting and interesting storylines.
Yeah, I think you said it. I'm just excited that it's going to get in players' hands and they can celebrate. I know they're excited too, because I've seen them. So please enjoy it and play it to its fullest and enjoy the worlds and the characters we've created.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for your time. Looking forward to the game. Thank you.
Pleasure.